Armin had always liked peaceful nights. They were quiet, calm, and easy to manage. He worked as a night guard at an old guest house near the hills. The place wasn't very busy. Mostly travelers who passed through the area stayed for a night and left early in the morning. Because of this routine, Armin rarely had to deal with anything unusual. His shift usually started at 8 p.m. and he spent most hours sitting at the reception desk or walking through the corridors to ensure everything was fine. But one particular night, things were different. The sky outside was cloudy, and the wind felt heavier than usual. The power in the guest house flickered again and again until finally, all the lights went out completely. Armin wasn't surprised. The building was old, and the wiring had problems for years. He sighed and reached for the flashlight he always kept in the drawer. It wasn't very bright, but it was enough to check the floors if something needed attention. He took a deep breath and started walking down the hallway. Every corner felt darker than usual. The soft sound of the wind passing through small gaps in the windows made the place feel even more silent. Armin wasn't scared, just alert. He had done this many times before, but he knew that when the electricity went out, some guests could panic or need help. He reached the first floor empty, quiet, nothing out of place. Then he climbed the stairs to the second floor. The sound of his steps echoed softly in the still air. Almost all rooms here were empty, except one at the end of the hall, which had been booked earlier that day by a traveler who hadn't checked in yet. The receptionist had told Armin that the guest might arrive late because of road issues. So, Armin expected the entire floor to be silent and still. But when he walked past the last room, he paused. There was a sound, a soft humming. At first, he thought maybe it was the wind. But it didn't sound like that. It was gentle, warm, and had a rhythm, like someone humming a tune while doing something quietly. Armin frowned and looked at the door. The room was supposed to be empty. Maybe the traveler had arrived late and checked in without Armin noticing. But he had been at the front desk the whole time. No one had passed through. He slowly moved closer to the door, holding his flashlight tightly. The humming grew clearer. It wasn't loud, but it was unmistakable. Someone was definitely inside the room. Armin swallowed. He didn't want to disturb anyone, but he also needed to be sure there wasn't a problem. What if someone entered the wrong room? What if a guest was lost? Or maybe an animal had slipped inside, though that seemed unlikely. After thinking for a moment, he gently knocked on the door. No response. He knocked again, a little louder. Still nothing. The humming continued, calm and unbothered. Armin took a slow breath, reached for the doorknob, and pushed the door slightly open just enough to peek inside with the light from his torch. What he saw made him freeze for a moment. Inside the room, standing near the wardrobe, was a woman. Not just any woman, she was extraordinarily tall. Taller than anyone Armin had ever seen in his life. Her back was turned to him, and her long hair reached far past her shoulders. She was adjusting her clothes, unaware that he had opened the door. Armin instantly stepped back, his heart beating fast, not out of fear, but pure shock. He hadn't expected anyone inside. He quickly closed the door, feeling embarrassed and confused. He thought he must have mistakenly entered an occupied room. Maybe she had checked in quietly, or maybe someone else had given her the key without telling him. He took 2 steps back, trying to gather his thoughts. But before he could decide what to do next, the door opened from inside. Armin froze again. The tall woman stepped out into the hallway, her presence filling the space. She looked directly at him. Not angry, not frightened, just calm and serious. Her height was striking. She wasn't just tall. She seemed almost giant-like compared to normal people. But her expression was soft, her eyes kind. And then she spoke. Her voice was calm, steady, and strangely confident. "You saw me changing tonight," she said. "Now you have to marry me." Armin felt like his breath got stuck in his chest. His eyes widened, and he stood perfectly still. He wasn't sure if he heard correctly. Was this a joke? Was she serious? Did he misunderstand her words? He opened his mouth to speak, but nothing came out. He simply stared, unsure how to react. The woman didn't seem shy or embarrassed. There was no anger in her tone. She had spoken as if she was announcing a simple fact, like telling someone the date or the time. She stood tall and calm, waiting for his reaction. Armin finally managed to say, I didn't mean to. I thought the room was empty, I'm sorry. The woman tilted her head slightly, observing him. Her eyes were gentle, and she didn't seem upset at all. Instead, she responded with steady confidence. It is our custom. If someone sees us in such a moment, then marriage is the right path. Armin blinked, trying to understand her words. Custom? Whose custom? What kind of rule was this? He felt a mix of confusion and curiosity. He wanted to ask questions, but his mind was still trying to process the situation. After a moment, the woman took a step back, giving him space. Her voice softened. Don't be afraid. I'm not here to cause trouble. But what happened means something important in my culture. Armin didn't know what to say. The hallway was quiet, and the faint moonlight coming through the window cast soft shadows around them. The situation felt unreal, like something from a story rather than real life. He had never experienced anything like this. The woman folded her hands calmly. My name is Roshna, she said. Armin nodded slowly, still stunned. I'm Armin. She gave a small, polite smile. I know you didn't do anything wrong. I'm not upset. But what happened cannot be ignored. Armin felt slightly relieved that she wasn't angry, but he was still overwhelmed by her sudden request. He cleared his throat and tried to speak more clearly. Can we talk about this downstairs? There's a small light in the lobby. Roshna nodded gently. Yes. Armin led the way, still unsure what he was supposed to say. He walked carefully down the stairs, and Roshna followed him. Even her footsteps sounded different, soft yet powerful. Her presence felt calm, not threatening, just big in every sense. When they reached the lobby, the emergency lights were glowing faintly, making the room look somewhat warm despite the power outage. Armin muttered, Please sit. Roshna sat down gracefully, folding her long legs neatly. Armin sat across from her, trying to gather his thoughts. He wasn't frightened anymore, just curious. Who was she? Where did she come from? Why did she have such a strange custom? Roshna looked at him with calm eyes. I arrived earlier, she explained. The receptionist had stepped out. The room was open, so I waited. Armin nodded slowly. Roshna took a deep breath and continued. Where I come from, in the mountains, we follow old traditions. They say that if someone sees us in a private moment, then destiny has chosen a bond between us. Armin listened carefully. Her words were unusual, but sincere. I'm not forcing you, she added softly. I only said what my belief taught me. Armin felt something shift inside him. Her tone wasn't demanding. It wasn't dramatic. It was honest, maybe a little surprising. But honest. He looked at her again. Despite her height and the suddenness of her words, she looked thoughtful, not frightening. She looked like someone who lived differently, followed different values, and believed in things most people didn't even consider. Armin didn't know what this night would lead to. He didn't know if her words were fate, misunderstanding, or something else. But one thing he knew for sure, the night was no longer ordinary. And nothing after this moment would be ordinary again. Armin sat quietly in the lobby, still trying to understand everything that had just happened. The emergency lights gave the room a soft, golden glow, which made the night feel calmer than it actually was. The silence between him and Roshna wasn't uncomfortable, it was simply filled with surprise and curiosity. Roshna sat across from him, her posture straight but relaxed. She didn't look confused or nervous. In fact, she looked like someone who had lived through many unusual moments and knew exactly how to deal with them. Her calmness helped Armin breathe more steadily. After a few moments, Roshna finally spoke again. I think I should explain everything properly, she said gently. Armin nodded quickly. Yes, please. Roshna gave a small smile. I know my words sounded sudden. Anyone would be shocked. But in my village, the meaning is different. Arman leaned forward slightly. Your village? Where is it? It's far in the mountains, she replied. A place where very few people go. We live away from cities and towns. Life there is simple, peaceful, but guided by traditions that are very old. Arman listened closely. He could feel her sincerity. She wasn't trying to scare him or force anything. She was simply sharing her truth. In our community, she continued, people are taller than most others. Our height is normal to us, but unusual for outsiders. Many travelers who met us for the first time were surprised. Just like you, Arman nodded. That explained her remarkable height. She wasn't strange, just different in a natural way. Roshna looked down for a moment, her fingers lightly touching the edge of her shawl. We believe that some moments are guided by destiny. For us, seeing someone in a private moment is not embarrassing or shameful. It means that paths have crossed in a way fate planned. Arman slowly absorbed her words. Her explanation made the earlier situation feel less strange and more meaningful, even though it was still unusual. So, when you said, Arman began carefully, that I have to marry you, Roshna looked up at him and gently shook her head. I did not mean to pressure you. I only reacted the way someone from my village would. It is our way of saying that a connection has formed, a connection we must discuss seriously. Arman felt a wave of relief wash over him. She wasn't demanding anything. She wasn't forcing him. She was simply following what she knew. I didn't come here to find a husband, she added with a warm smile. I came because I was traveling. But what happened tonight? My traditions tell me it has meaning. Arman found himself smiling slightly too. Her honesty made everything easier to understand. He asked softly, do all people in your village follow this rule? Yes, she replied, but not in a strict or frightening way. It is more of a belief, a sign that two people should at least talk and understand each other. If both agree, then the next steps are taken. If they don't, then they part respectfully. Arman nodded again. I see. Roshna continued calmly. Most of the time, such moments connect two people who were not expecting it. Sometimes these connections grow into strong relationships. Sometimes they don't. But the belief encourages us to give the moment a chance. Her voice was gentle, but it carried years of tradition and respect. She wasn't asking for something unusual. She was asking for understanding. Arman could actually feel his nervousness slowly melting away. He began to notice things he hadn't before. How soft her voice was. How polite her words were. How she spoke with dignity and kindness. Her height no longer felt intimidating. Her presence felt peaceful. After a short silence, Arman asked, why were you humming earlier? Roshna looked surprised for a second, then laughed softly, a warm, light sound. I hum when I'm nervous, she admitted. Traveling makes me uneasy sometimes. Humming helps me relax. Arman couldn't help but smile. I thought someone was enjoying the dark. Roshna covered her mouth lightly to hide another smile. Not at all. I was just trying to feel calm. The conversation slowly became more relaxed. Arman felt his shoulders loosen, and his heartbeat returned to normal. Roshna, seeing his comfort, continued talking about her life. My village is surrounded by high mountains. During the winter, snow covers everything. Most of us live in wooden houses built close together. We do our own farming. We gather herbs, cook simple food, and help each other in everyday tasks. Her eyes softened with pride as she spoke. In my village, the most important values are honesty, loyalty, and respect. These values guide every decision we make. That is why our traditions mean so much to us. Arman found himself imagining the place she described: quiet mountains, peaceful homes, tall people living simple lives. It felt like a world far away from the busy roads and small guest house where he worked. How did you end up here? He asked curiously. I came to visit another village near the hills, she explained. There were some things I needed to trade. but the road was blocked due to weather, so I stayed in this area longer than expected. I planned to rest here for one night before continuing. Armin nodded. So that's why the receptionist didn't check you in properly? Yes, she said. He was busy helping someone outside. I didn't disturb him. The room was open, so I went inside. They both laughed softly at the coincidence. As the minutes passed, Armin felt more and more comfortable. He wasn't talking to a stranger anymore. He was talking to someone who saw the world differently, someone who valued things he had never thought about. For the first time in a long time, he felt genuinely interested in knowing more about a person. Roshna's gentle expression changed slightly, becoming thoughtful. I hope my first words didn't frighten you too much, she said. Armin scratched the back of his neck shyly. They surprised me. She nodded. I understand. If I lived in the city, I would probably react differently too. Armin chuckled. It was the most unexpected sentence I've ever heard. Roshna laughed quietly. I believe that. A comfortable silence settled between them again. The guest house felt peaceful. The wind outside had calmed a little, and the emergency lights flickered softly. After a moment, Roshna spoke again. I want you to know something. Tradition is important to me, but so is your comfort. I don't want you to feel forced. Armin felt touched by her sincerity. Thank you, he replied. I appreciate that. She looked into his eyes with quiet honesty. All I ask is that you think about what happened with an open heart. Destiny sometimes works in strange ways. Armin didn't know what destiny planned, but he knew one thing: he didn't feel uneasy around her anymore. He felt something different. Curiosity. Interest. A pull he couldn't explain. Roshna noticed his thoughtful expression. If you want, she said softly, we can talk more in the morning. We don't have to decide anything tonight. Armin nodded gratefully. Yes, talking more would help. He expected her to head back to her room, but instead she leaned back slightly and looked around the lobby. Tell me about you, Armin, she said. If we are going to understand this moment, I should know you too. Armin blinked in surprise. About me? Yes, she replied warmly. Your life, your dreams, your thoughts. Whatever you want to share. Armin felt shy at first, but her gentle tone encouraged him. He began telling her about his simple life, where he grew up, how he ended up working at the guest house, the responsibilities he carried for his family, and how he always tried to stay honest and hardworking. Roshna listened with full attention, nodding slowly at each part. She didn't interrupt or judge. She seemed genuinely interested. You are sincere, she said softly when he finished. That is a quality my people value deeply. Armin felt warmth rise in his chest. Her words weren't flattery. They felt real. Time passed without them noticing. The clock moved closer to midnight, but neither felt tired. They were lost in each other's stories, discovering new details, new similarities, new reasons to keep talking. By the end of their conversation, Armin realized that Roshna wasn't just a tall woman from a different world. She was kind-hearted, thoughtful, wise, and surprisingly understanding. She wasn't strange anymore. She wasn't a shock. She was someone he actually wanted to know more. As the lights flickered again, a soft breeze passed through the open window, and Armin understood something clearly. This unexpected night was not the end of something strange. It was the beginning of something meaningful. The next morning, when Armin woke up after his night shift, the first thing he remembered was Roshna sitting in the lobby, speaking calmly about her traditions and her village. The memory felt fresh, almost unreal, but also strangely comforting. He had never spoken to someone like her before. Someone who belonged to a world so different from his own, yet made him feel at ease. He rubbed his eyes, washed his face, and stepped outside the guest house to breathe the early morning air. The sky was bright, the hills covered in soft sunlight, and a peaceful stillness hung in the air. But even in that peaceful moment, one thought kept returning to his mind. Roshna is still here. He wasn't sure what their next conversation would be like, or whether she still expected him to respond to her tradition. All he knew was that he wasn't afraid anymore. Instead, he felt curious. And curiosity, he realized, was much stronger than fear. When he entered the guest house again, she was sitting near a window, looking at the hills with quiet wonder. She turned when she heard his steps. "Good morning, Armin," she said with a warm smile. "Good morning," he replied, feeling surprisingly relaxed. She was dressed in simple clothes again, long shawl, a warm sweater, but everything she wore seemed graceful on her tall frame. "Did you sleep?" she asked gently. "A little," Armin said. "And you?" "A little," she answered with a small laugh. "New places make my sleep light." Their conversation started casually, but it flowed naturally, as if they had known each other for weeks, not hours. As the day went on, Roshna remained at the guest house. Her transport was still delayed due to road repairs, so she had no choice but to stay longer. But Arman wasn't disappointed. Her presence made the place feel alive in a new and unexpected way. Throughout the day, Arman and Roshna spoke many times. Sometimes it was small talk about food, weather, the hills outside. Other times, it went deeper, touching personal thoughts and memories. Each conversation made Armin understand her more. In the afternoon, Roshna asked, "Would you like to take a walk outside? I want to see the plants near the hills. I heard they are beautiful here too." Armin agreed, and they walked along a narrow path behind the guest house. The sun was warm. A gentle breeze carried the smell of earth, and birds chirped softly. As they walked, Armin began noticing something interesting. Roshna wasn't just physically tall. Her knowledge was tall too. Full of depth, she pointed to a plant with tiny purple flowers. "This grows in my village too," she said. "We use it to make herbal tea. It helps people relax." Arman raised his eyebrows. "You know plants?" "Yes," she nodded. "In my village, we learn from childhood. Nature is our friend. It helps us in many ways." She touched another plant and continued, "This one is good for the skin. And this one," she pointed farther, "is used in cooking." Armin listened, surprised. She spoke with confidence, like someone who carried knowledge, passed down through generations. He felt something warm in his chest, something like admiration. As they kept walking, Armin noticed how calmly she moved despite her height. She walked with slow, steady steps, careful not to disturb anything around her. She looked strong, but gentle. He began to see the beauty in the very things that had shocked him the previous night. After some time, they reached a rock where they sat down to rest. The view from there showed the hills stretching far, with sunlight dancing on the slopes. Roshna looked at the scenery, then at Arman. "Your world is beautiful too," she said softly. Arman smiled. "My world is small compared to yours." She shook her head. "A world is not small because of its size. It is small only if the people inside it stop learning." Her words stayed with him. They sat quietly for a while, letting the breeze touch their faces. And then, she spoke again, this time with a little hesitation. "Arman," she said slowly, "I want to say something again. About last night." He turned to her calmly. "You can say anything." She took a gentle breath. "I know, my first words were sudden, and I don't want you to feel pressure. What I said was a tradition. Yes, but traditions must also respect the other person." Armin nodded thoughtfully. She continued, her voice steady but soft. "I don't want you to feel rushed or afraid. If you feel uncomfortable, you can tell me. We can forget the tradition. We can forget the moment." Arman felt a surprising pull in his heart when she said, "Forget." Something inside him didn't want to forget. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he looked at her, really looked at her. Her calm eyes, her honest expression, her quiet dignity. She wasn't joking. She wasn't forcing. She was offering him a choice. Finally, Armin asked gently, "Why does this tradition matter to you so much?" Roshna looked at the hills for a moment before answering. "In my village," she said slowly, We don't choose people by appearance or wealth. We choose people by destiny. We believe some meetings are planned long before we understand them," she said. She looked at him now, her eyes full of sincerity. "Last night was an accident. But maybe it was also a sign." Armand felt his heart steady itself. He wasn't sure if he believed in destiny, but he believed in feelings. And his feelings toward Roshna were changing faster than he expected. They walked back to the guest house in a comfortable silence. It wasn't awkward. It was the kind of silence that forms when two people grow closer without even trying. During the evening, they sat together again under the dim lights of the lobby. Armand brought tea for both of them. Roshna smiled as she took the cup. "Your tea is better than any I've had while traveling." Armand laughed softly. "It's just simple tea. Simple things," she said wisely, "are often the best." He didn't know if she was talking about the tea or something else. They talked about their families, their responsibilities, their dreams. Armand learned that Roshna wanted to open a small herbal shop one day. She wanted to bring natural remedies from her village to the cities, so more people could benefit from them. "That's a beautiful idea," Armand said. She looked down shyly. "It is something close to my heart." When Armand told her he wanted to help his younger siblings study and build a better life, she listened with quiet admiration. "You carry your responsibilities with honesty," she said. "That is rare." Armand felt his cheeks warm at her words. As the night deepened, the emergency lights flickered again, creating a soft atmosphere around them. Roshna looked at him, thoughtful. "Armand, do you think destiny really exists?" He paused, thinking. Maybe. Or maybe destiny is just a name we give to moments that feel bigger than normal. Roshna smiled. "That is a beautiful thought." Armand looked at her gently. "Meeting you feels bigger than normal." The moment became quiet. Something warm passed between them, unspoken, yet clear. Roshna lowered her gaze shyly, something he had not seen her do before. "I feel the same," she whispered. Armand felt his heart steady. He didn't need traditions or rules to explain the connection forming between them. He could feel it naturally. Later that night, when Roshna stood up to return to her room, she paused and looked back at him. "Armand," she said softly, "thank you for giving this a chance." He gave her a small smile. "I think some chances deserve to be taken." She held his gaze for a moment, then nodded gently. "Good night, Armand." "Good night, Roshna." When she walked away, Armand watched her tall silhouette disappear down the hallway. He felt something he couldn't fully explain, something warm, peaceful, and strangely hopeful. He knew one thing for sure: their bond wasn't just a tradition anymore. It was becoming something real. Something neither of them had expected, and he wasn't afraid of it. He wanted to see where it would lead. The next morning came quietly, like a soft whisper across the hills. The sunlight slipped gently through the windows of the guest house, warming the cold floors and touching everything with a golden glow. Armand woke up with a peaceful feeling he hadn't felt in a long time. The previous day had changed so much, changed what he understood about people, about destiny, and about unexpected moments that could alter someone's life forever. But today felt even more important. He washed his face, fixed his shirt, and stepped outside the lobby. Roshna wasn't there yet, but he knew she would come down soon. She was always calm and never rushed. Armand went to prepare tea, the same way he had done the previous evening when they had talked for hours. This time, he added a little more care, making sure the tea tasted as warm as the feelings he carried now. A few minutes later, he heard slow footsteps, steady, soft, and familiar. He turned, and there she was. Roshna walked into the lobby with her long shawl wrapped neatly around her shoulders. Her tall figure looked graceful in the morning light, and she gave Armand a warm smile as she approached him. "Good morning," she said in her calm, gentle voice. "Good morning," Armand replied, smiling back. "I made tea." Her eyes softened. "You remembered." They sat together at the same place where they had spent so much time talking the day before. There was something different between them now, a quiet understanding, a softness that came from knowing each other beyond the surface. For a while, they simply enjoyed their tea in silence. But it wasn't the awkward kind of silence. It was the kind that grows when two people feel safe and comfortable with each other. After a moment, Rushna placed her cup down and looked at Arman carefully. Arman, there is something I need to tell you. He sat up a little straighter. You can tell me anything. She took a slow breath. The road to my village. It will open tomorrow. My people are expecting me back soon. Arman felt a slight heaviness in his chest. He had known that her stay wasn't permanent, but the idea of her leaving suddenly made his heart tighten. Still, he didn't show his worry on his face. He didn't want to make her feel pressured or guilty. I understand, he said quietly. Your family must be waiting. She nodded slowly. Yes, but, her voice softened even more. I don't want to leave without understanding what is in your heart. Arman looked at her, surprised. Rushna, she continued gently. Our tradition tells us to think deeply about moments like the one we shared. But I don't want to follow tradition blindly. I want to understand what you feel, not because of an old rule, but because of your own heart. Arman took a breath. He had been thinking about this too, the entire night and morning. He didn't want to make a promise lightly. At the same time, he didn't want to ignore the connection they had built, so he spoke honestly. Rushna, when I first saw you, I was shocked. I didn't know how to react. Everything felt strange and unexpected. But then we talked. And the more we talked, the more I learned. You're honest, caring, gentle, and wise. I feel peaceful around you. I feel like I can trust you. Rushna listened quietly, her eyes warm. Arman continued, his voice sincere. I don't know what destiny wants, but I know what I want. I want to know you better. I want to understand your world. And I want you to be part of mine. Her expression softened even more, and her eyes glistened slightly, not with sadness, but with emotion. Arman, she whispered. You speak with a truthful heart. That means more to me than you know. A quiet moment passed between them, full of meaning. After a pause, Rushna spoke again, her tone gentle but firm. If you want, you can come with me to my village. Not forever. Not as a promise, but as a guest. To meet my people, understand our traditions, see our way of life, and then, if your heart still feels the same, she paused, then smiled softly, then we can talk about our future. Arman felt something warm spread inside him. She wasn't asking for an immediate decision. She wasn't demanding anything. She was offering a path, slow, thoughtful, and respectful. I would like that, he said. I want to see where you come from. She looked relieved, almost happy. Then tomorrow, when the road opens, you will come with me? Yes, Arman said. I will. The decision felt strangely easy, like he had known the answer all along. The rest of the day passed peacefully. Rushna told him more about her village, the mountains that surrounded it, the way people lived simply and supported one another, the celebrations they held during seasonal changes, the respect they gave to nature and time. Arman told her more about his own life, his family struggles, his hopes for his younger siblings, his dreams of doing something meaningful one day. Rushna listened with full attention, her expressions shifting gently as she absorbed each part of his story. Later in the afternoon, they walked outside again. This time, the wind was softer, carrying the smell of pine and soil. Rushna walked slowly beside Arman, her long shadow stretching across the path. Do you think your family will be surprised? She asked with a soft laugh. Arman smiled, very surprised. She laughed gently. Mine will be too. But in my village, your kindness will be respected. As evening approached, the guest house lights flickered back on, the power had been restored. The sudden bright glow made the place feel warmer, more alive. Arman and Rushna sat together in the lobby again, watching the sky change colors from orange to soft blue to deep, gentle night. The stars appeared early, shining brightly in the clear mountain sky. Rushna looked up at them and said, Where I come from, we believe stars carry stories. Some belong to the past, some to the future. Arman asked softly, And which one belongs to us? She looked at him, her eyes full of quiet hope. Maybe one that is still being written. That night, Armin didn't want the hours to pass too quickly. But time has its own way of moving, whether people are ready or not. When it was finally time to say goodnight, Roshna stood and adjusted her shawl. "Tomorrow," she said gently, "we begin a new chapter." Armin nodded. Together, she held his gaze for a moment longer than usual, then turned and walked slowly to her room. Armin watched her go, feeling a strange mix of excitement and uncertainty. But he wasn't afraid. He felt ready. The next morning arrived with fresh sunlight and a cool breeze. The road repair was finally completed, allowing travel again. A small local transport vehicle waited outside the guest house, ready to take passengers toward the mountains. Roshna stood beside it with her small bag. Armin approached her, holding a little more confidence in his steps than before. "Ready?" she asked. "Ready," he replied. They stepped into the vehicle together. As it started moving toward the hills, Armin looked at the long road ahead and felt a steady beat inside his chest. Something like hope. Something like courage. Something like destiny. Roshna looked at him with a gentle smile, her eyes bright in the morning sun. "You saw me in a moment that surprised both of us," she said softly. "But maybe that moment wasn't an accident." Armin nodded. Maybe it was the beginning. The mountains rose ahead, tall and silent, as if waiting for them. And with each passing mile, Armin felt a quiet certainty growing inside him. Some stories don't start with planning. Some stories start with surprise. And this story, their story, had only just begun.